President. This is perhaps the most recognizable title for a head of state, typically found in republics where the government is technically separated from a monarchy. A president's power can vary wildly depending on the country's constitution. In a presidential system like that of the United States, Brazil, or Nigeria, this person acts as both the symbolic head of the nation and the active head of the government, holding the power to veto legislation and command the armed forces. In other places, such as Italy, India, or Germany, the role is largely ceremonial, serving as a non-partisan figurehead who signs laws, hosts state dinners, and greets foreign dignitaries while leaving the actual day-to-day politics to a separate head of government. The title itself comes from the Latin word meaning to sit before, reflecting the idea of an individual chosen to preside over a gathered body of citizens. And while the term suggests a single leader, their actual influence is often checked by a legislature, a Supreme Court, or a rigid set of constitutional limits. Prime Minister. Unlike a president who is often elected by the people at large through a popular vote or an electoral college, a prime minister usually rises to power from within the legislature through a parliamentary process. This leader is typically the head of the political party that holds the most seats in parliament, meaning their ability to stay in power depends heavily on maintaining the support of their fellow lawmakers and coalition partners. This system is common in the United Kingdom, Canada, and Japan, where the executive and legislative branches are closely intertwined rather than strictly separated. Because they must constantly answer to Parliament during questioning sessions and debates, prime ministers often face more immediate political pressure than presidents, as a simple vote of no confidence from their peers can remove them from office at any time without the need for a general election. Monarch. This role is defined by heredity, where power is passed down through a family line rather than through a public mandate or a popular vote. In the modern world, most monarchs are constitutional, meaning they have little to no actual political authority, and instead serve as a living symbol of a nation's history, culture, and continuity. Countries like Norway, Spain, and the Netherlands maintain these positions to provide a steady sense of national identity that sits above the fray of partisan politics and temporary government changes. However, in a few remaining absolute monarchies, such as Saudi Arabia or Oman, the king or sultan retains total control over the law, the economy, and the military, wielding the kind of centralized power that was more common in the Middle Ages. These absolute rulers act as the final authority on all matters of state, often serving as both the head of religion and the head of the legal system simultaneously. Chancellor. While often similar to a prime minister in function, this title is used in countries like Germany and Austria and carries a specific historical weight and structural importance. A chancellor is the head of the federal government and is elected by the lower house of parliament after a period of intense negotiation between various political parties. The role is designed to be a strong executive position, but is balanced by a separate federal president who handles the ceremonial duties of the state and serves as a moral authority. This division of labor was carefully refined in the mid-20th century to ensure that no single leader could easily dismantle the democratic guardrails of the nation. The chancellor's primary job is to set the general guidelines for government policy and oversee the various federal ministers who manage the country's departments, often acting as the lead negotiator for their country within international bodies like the European Union. Dictator. This type of leader holds absolute authority over a state, typically without the consent of the people, and without being bound by a constitution or an independent legal system. Dictators often come to power during times of extreme national crisis, economic collapse, or through a military coup where the existing government is forcibly removed. While some dictators maintain a thin veneer of democracy by holding controlled elections with predetermined outcomes and no real opposition, the reality is that all branches of government, the courts, the media, and the police are under their direct and personal influence. Historically, this model focuses on the survival of the regime and the suppression of any political opposition through censorship or force, making the leader the sole arbiter of the country's laws, its economic resources, and its future direction. Supreme Leader. This is a unique title, often found in theocratic or one-party states, where a single individual holds ultimate authority over both the political and ideological direction of the country. In Iran, The supreme leader outranks the president and controls the military and the judiciary, ensuring that all government actions align with specific religious principles and clerical interpretations. In North Korea, the title represents a massive cult of personality, where the leader is viewed as the infallible head of the national family and the protector of the state's founding ideology. This role is fundamentally different from a standard presidency because it is often held for life and is based on an ideological or spiritual mandate that sits entirely above the regular laws of the land, often making the leader a figure of worship as much as a political executive. Governor General. This leader acts as the representative of a monarch in a country that is an independent realm, such as Australia, Jamaica, or New Zealand. Since the British monarch cannot be physically present in all 15 Commonwealth realms at once, the Governor-General performs the sovereign's constitutional duties on their behalf within that specific territory. This person is usually a citizen of that country, appointed by the monarch on the formal advice of the local prime minister. While they technically hold reserve powers to dismiss a government in a moment of extreme constitutional crisis, their daily work involves giving royal assent to bills, swearing in ministers, and performing community outreach. This role acts as a functional bridge between the nation's colonial history and its modern status as a sovereign state, providing a non-political figure to carry out the highest legal formalities of the land.